There's one thing people seem to get a little bit twisted, and that is the concept of freedom, or the concept of the price of freedom. That's right. Freedom isn't actually free. It's kind of a misconception there. Because it's got the word free in it, and you think, oh, well, it must come absolutely free of charge. No, 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 no. Freedom is never free. It does come at a price. A lot of things that are free are not free. People in the UK think they have free healthcare. Well, they don't. Your tax pays for that. You're paying for it. It's paid for. The only people who get it for free are, well, people on benefits. I've had this discussion before a couple of times. One time was in Vietnam with an American. And when I brought up the fact that some people don't realize that there is a price for freedom, he was very much elated. He was like, I wish more people in my country understood that. And he also reiterated a point that I had made. He also touched on a point that I considered, that kind of being in a country like that, you had way more freedom than you might do in your supposedly more free country. Now that might sound absolutely crazy, especially like somewhere like America, which is like the land of the free. We have freedom of speech. You got freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the right to bear arms, and all these kinds of things. But how free are you really? Freedom can be quite subjective. Freedom is a hot topic of discussion in this current age, in the coming into 2022, at the tail end of the worldwide pandemic known as many freedoms have been taken away, apparently for your own good. Now the problem with part of the problem is there's a saying that, more people prefer. Now you see, there is this saying that most people want to be safe rather than free, which is very true. And that's become more and more apparent. They quite like being restricted because they feel safe. Freedom means responsibility, and I think in our societies, particularly in the West, particularly in my country, the UK, responsibility has become sort of a dirty word. In fact, responsibility is something that has been slowly eroded because the government kind of take care of everything, and therefore we've been left with less freedom and also less responsibility. Children aren't free. They're free in their minds, but they are not free at all. A child, you're allowed to have reins on a child like they're a dog. You can walk around with a child like that and no one will bat an eyelid. They'll be like, oh, okay, that's fine. Do you see what I'm saying? You can do that with a child. You can shout at a child and say, oi, stop running. You can't shout at adults and tell them to stop running. Well, some places do, but, generally might get you a bit of trouble. It's contentious freedom. When people talk about the freedoms that have been taken away and how to get your freedoms back, people say, well, you can get your life back, you can get freedom back, if you agree to take a vaccination. Now, people will say that might be a price for freedom, and I could argue that it is a price for freedom. In order to get your freedom back, you're going to have to take this vaccination. But then again, it's not, because those freedoms that you had before that you did not question were taken away from you. And a lot of people demanded that they had their own freedom taken away from them, which is another discussion altogether. So to have something taken away from you and then be offered it back but at a price is not freedom. So the price of freedom is kind of, is it negated? Is that the right word to use? Some people understand that freedom comes at a price, but there's people out there who scream and shout about freedom all the time, saying, we are free, we deserve to be free. I think a lot of the times neither do they understand what freedom actually is, or neither do they really want the freedom that they're begging for. Everyone kind of likes having someone to pick up their shit after them. You see, in the UK and more so in the USA, you do have freedom of expression. You can tell the government to go fuck itself. You can burn an effigy of your prime minister or president, and apart from the people who support them screaming and shouting about it on social media, not a lot's going to happen to you. It's kind of fine. In a country like Vietnam or Thailand, which are countries I have frequented more for the last few years, I'm a well-travelled man, you can't really do that. Not really, You kind of shouldn't be doing that, especially in Thailand. Try and do that. Try and burn an effigy of the king. You will get bummed. So we do have this sort of concept that we are totally free in the West. And yet there is so little we can do. Because freedom of speech is just freedom to talk a lot. It's not really freedom to do much, is it? The amount of bureaucracy, red tape, the amount of real rules and regulations that have come because of health and safety and political correctness have completely constricted us. Whereas in countries in Southeast Asia that I know, Vietnam and Thailand, there ain't none of that really. You are free to do as you like, which comes at a very hefty price. The price is there's no safety net, and death is around the corner. Constantly, death is around the corner. For example, you don't need a sign to say there's a big hole in the pavement or in the road. There will just be a big hole. There's no sign telling you there's a big hole. You just have to be responsible enough to realize that there might be a hole in the floor. If you turn up on a building site and you don't have, say, steel toe caps on or a hard hat, it probably doesn't matter, because health and safety regulations have pretty much been, they never existed. I was about to say they've been thrown out the window. You can't throw an invisible thing out the window. It doesn't exist. You can ride around on a motorcycle in Vietnam with about, 5 kids on it, none of you wearing helmets, and no one cares. You can wake up in the morning and instead, you wake up in the morning and you're broke and you're like, well, what do? I need to get some money in. Well, you can just set up a shop in your house, or you could just get a cart and a furnace and strap it to a motorbike and ride around with a blazing furnace on the side of your car with meat just there, with flies landing on it and shit, and just pull up somewhere and start barbecuing for people and charge them money. You've got a business. You literally set up a business in about an hour. Try and set up a business in the UK that's similar. Try and have yourself a little food cart or a little barbecue place. The amount of red tape, rules and regulations and rigmarole you'll have to go through, by the time you've set up the business, you have lost all interest for it. It literally kills the spirit. Because why bother? Because in the UK, the government will take care of you. What do? Saying, I can't work today. And therefore, you'll just get given money. When you have to rely on the government for everything, that is not freedom. That's just trading in your parents for a parent you have to share with millions of people. It's not cool. Freedom is incredibly dangerous. That's why freedom of speech is considered dangerous, because you're free to say what you want. When some countries, you're just free to do many different things and no one cares. It's so easy to do things. These rules and regulations, do you know if you move into an apartment place in Vietnam or Thailand, all right, you have to hand your passport over because you're a foreigner. But apart from that, you literally walk in somewhere, go, I like this, give them the money, and you've moved in. That's quite free. In the UK, what do you have to do? Well, God knows it's been so long, and I've been subletting for years. Do you know why? Subletting's illegal, technically. But it's way easier. It's like, hey, got a room? Yeah, move in. Do you see what I'm saying? You do things the legitimate way. What a pain in the ass. All the forms, all the money. It's a disgrace. But, what sort of rights do you have when you're a tenant in some place? And what if you want to get something done? And what about building regulations? Yes, building regulations. Well, some buildings aren't made very well. But do you know what? They're cheap. And they get built real quick. Do you know what? If you think the building you've moved into is substandard, you can leave. That's right, you can leave. You can assess the situation yourself and go, this looks a bit dodgy. And you can ask the landowner saying, I think this is a bit dodgy. And they might lie to you. But you'll know they're lying because you can see it's dodgy. And you know what you can do? You are free to leave. You just leave. Bye-bye. None of this other nonsense. You can opt to either be tied into a long-term contract or a very short-term contract. It's up to you. This is one thing I love, is low-level danger. I can, get on the back of a motorbike in Thailand or Vietnam or similar countries and not put a helmet on. Now, I like to wear a helmet, but you can do that. In fact, it's incredibly dangerous, but you know what? You can do it. There's people riding around with a baby holding it up like this, woo, and you're like, that baby might get his head smashed in and die. And a lot of people do die on the roads out there, but you know what? They're free to die. This is the thing about freedom. It comes with a hell of a lot of responsibility, because when you are shackled in by bureaucracy and health and safety and all these different things, many things can go wrong, and you've only got yourself to rely on and yourself to hold responsible. It teaches you a bit more responsibility, because a lot of responsibility has been taken away from us. Even when responsibility has been taken away from us, there's still things we should be responsible for that we're no longer thinking that we're responsible for. That's the price of safety. And who's responsible for it all? The government. And when it goes wrong, who do you blame? The government. And what do the government do? Probably nothing. That's the price of safety. Freedom is incredibly, incredibly risky. Freedom is blissful freedom. You are free to do whatever you want. That means you are free to die. And this is the thing. When you're given freedom, you can go out there. There might be things out there that will kill you. Well, there's always things out there that will kill you. The virus might kill you. A car might kill you. Some nutter might kill you. But guess what? You're free to die. You're free. That's what freedom's all about. It does come at a price, which means risks. And this is why I don't appreciate the whole stay safe out there. Do you know what? Because I'm not into it. I'm not really interested in staying safe, because safety isn't really being alive. Safety is kind of mundane. The universe, nature, by design, is violent and unpredictable, unforgiving. It's natural to be constantly in danger, and that's what makes you feel alive. You get these people who do thrill-seeking, people that work in an office from 9 to 5 have the most safe life, and then what do they go and do? I don't know, go jump off a cliff with a parachute. It's because they're strangled of freedom. If they're free all the time, they wouldn't need to go and do silly things like that. Some of us just live precariously all the time and just go, woo, this is precarious. What can happen next? Anything can happen next. It could be good or it could be bad. Some of us just like to choose freedom, and you're going to have to accept that. The price of freedom is, yes, you can do what you want, and you might catch a little cough, or that little cough might actually kill you. That's freedom. It's every day's a risk. In more free countries that are considered to be not free, when you want to move house, you don't need to call up a removal service that will charge you up the wall. You can literally just strap all your furniture to a 50cc motorcycle and drive it precariously down the road, risking everybody's lives, including your own. Do you know why? Because everyone else risks their lives too. Because everyone's free to do what they want, and they know, well, this could be a bit hairy today, but I'm free to do as I like. For those of you that chose safety over freedom, that's fine. But do not be choosing your safety over our freedom. Which I'm saying is, if people decide that they want to freely go about their business and take risks, then they may do so. If you're not willing to take any risks in your life and you want to be cooped up forever because other people like to take risks, then that's also up to you. That's the price of safety. The price of safety is not being free. So you have to make a decision. Now, luckily for you and luckily for us, the metaverse now exists. Now, I looked at the metaverse and thought, this is terrible. What an awful idea. This must be stopped at all costs. And then I got thinking, no, because It's terrible for me, but as long as they don't force me into it, then that's fine, because there's people who are ruining the outside world for us. So they can go in there. Problem solved. If we are going to be separated as a society for those that choose the dangers of freedom and those that just want to have the restrictions of safety, then fine. You live in the metaverse, we'll live in the real world. The real world is fucking cool. It's hot, it's cold, it burns, it freezes, it kills, it nurtures, it does many wonderful things. The metaverse will just maintain you. That's fine, you just want to maintain, that's cool. But just because you want to be safe doesn't mean that we should be restricted by your safety, and vice versa. Maybe you don't have the right to freedom, maybe you also don't have the right to safety. You can choose safety, but it comes at a price, and that price is not being free. You can choose freedom, but that comes at a price, and that price is not being that safe. It's up to you. Go your own way. You say, oh, well, they're out there freely living their lives. Yeah, they are. So you can stay at home and not live your life, or live it how you want to. That's the price you pay. I'm willing to pay the price of freedom. Now you might say, oh, well, there's no freedom if you can't go nowhere because of mandates and blah, blah, blah. Well, it depends on how long the mandates last. But then you can fight for your freedom, can't you? Like Braveheart. And that's the price of freedom again. Some people are willing to go to very extreme measures for freedom. We see this right across the world, right throughout history, time and time again. Because there is a price to pay for freedom, which means fighting for it. And in order to fight for the ideals of freedom, so other people can be free, which means that you're going to have a hard time, that's the price. There is always a price. And I think if more people had known about the price that has to be paid for safety, the price that is paid for freedom, before all this began, we might be in a very different situation. But at least now you know. So you just got to choose which price are you willing to pay. And that's the kind of person you will be. And that will decide your future. And that's all you got to do, man. I just want to drink a bottle of Bollinger on a jet ski with no helmet on and just ride into a furnace of flames and see what happens. I might die, but I'll be enjoying myself, and I think that's what counts. Anyway, it's been a pleasure for you. Not so much for me. This is work for me, so it's not a pleasure. No such, that's the price of freedom, isn't it? It's doing this. I could freely do this whenever I want. I'm a slave to the algorithm. Am I free? Am I free in this matrix of content and